A couple things. There's been a lot in the news over the last 24 hours about immigration as an issue that confronts our country. And I wanted to put this in the context of that and then talk specifically about the details that are within this. First of all, in the context of immigration reform, there are things that I think the vast majority of Americans would agree. And one of them is this, that we have a legal immigration system which is not working for the country. And I think despite the debate that exists about illegal immigration and how to deal with that reality, and that's a real debate that needs to happen, one of the things everyone agrees on is that legal immigration is good for this country. It's been an important part of our history. It's a critical part of our future. And that the legal immigration system that we have in place right now does not work for America. And it really does not work for the 21st century. Now, let me be clear about one thing. I support family-based immigration. That's how my parents came to this country. And I don't want us to do anything that undermines it. But I also know that in the 21st century, we can no longer afford to have an immigration system where literally only less than 10% of the people who come here do so based on the skills that they bring to this country. Now think about this for a moment. If I said to you that the United States of America, that the NBA should be a collection of the best basketball players in the world, who would disagree with that? If I said that Major League Baseball should be a collection of the best baseball players in the world, who would disagree with that? Well, how then can we disagree about that when it comes to our economy? That the smartest, hardest working, most talented people on this planet, we should want them to come here. I, for one, have no fear that our country is going to be overrun by PhDs. I, for one, have no fear that this country is going to be overrun by nuclear physicists and inventors and entrepreneurs. Now, we have to create a system where that can happen in a rational, organized, and legal way. And that's what we're attempting to do here, because that is not what we have right now in the United States. What we have, in fact, is a system, and Senator Hatch has discussed it. It's really startling when I heard this. The nation has a demand yearly for 120,000 computer science engineers, but our universities only produce 40,000 people a year. Now, this is an indictment of our educational system. We need to fix that. We need to get to a point in this country where we have 120,000 people graduating to meet the demand. But in the short term, right now, we've got to deal with the fact that if those 80,000 jobs, if those 80,000 graduates are not created here, those jobs are still going to exist. They're just not going to exist here. These companies aren't going to wait for us to produce more graduates. These companies aren't going to wait for us to fix our immigration system. They've got a business to run. And if they can't find the people they need to fill these jobs, they'll just send those jobs to another country. Let me tell you what that means in practical terms. That means that these high-paying jobs in these industries will be paying the taxes in some other country. We'll be stimulating the economy in some other country. We'll be laying down roots in some other nation. You want to know why America's special? One of the reasons why it's special? Because for over 200 years, we have been a collection of the world's best and brightest, a magnet that attracts people here. And now we have an immigration system that in the 21st century is making that very difficult to achieve. And that's what this effort does. The other concern I've heard is, well, what about the folks that are in this country now? And this is a legitimate concern. When people raise that, I don't get upset about that. That is a very legitimate concern. About the kids that are born here and raised here that go into these industries, will they be hurt? Well, number one, as you've seen, the need far exceeds what we're producing. So that's not an immediate concern. But here's the other, and that is the startling figure that was used earlier, that for every 100 foreign-born STEM workers, we're creating 260 some odd jobs. It's indisputable that these jobs create jobs for people right down the line in this process. If you're an entrepreneur that's an immigrant, you create jobs for all kinds of people, most of whom are born here. If you create some new technology or develop some new technology, you create jobs and opportunity for people that live here, work here, were born here. This is a net positive for our economy. And that's why this issue is so critical that it be confronted. And by the way, as we talk about needing to deal with our entire immigration system, we can't modernize America's legal immigration system if we don't have a way to get the world's best and brightest to come here in a way that's expedient, in a way that's cost-effective, in a way that's safe, and in a way that's legal. And that's what we're attempting to do. This bill is not in competition with any other effort. It complements it. In fact, it's an indispensable part of it. You cannot comprehensively reform America's legal immigration system if it does not include visa provisions for graduates in science, technology, engineering, and math. My final point. It makes no sense to invite people to come to the United States, to study at our universities, to become the best and brightest in the world at the subject matter, and then to ask them to leave. Think about that for a moment. We tell you, come to America. We're going to let you go to our best schools. We're going to teach you everything we know. And then we want you to go somewhere else and use the knowledge that you gained here. That's crazy. That's not just nonsensical. It is crazy. We can't keep doing that. And hopefully we'll begin to change it here now. It's been a pleasure to work with all the folks involved in this effort. Senator Hatch's leadership has been extraordinary. Senator Klobuchar as well. We have a really good group working here, and our final colleague who's been a part of this, an indispensable one. We worked on this issue in the context of another piece of legislation, which we're hoping will get moving soon, Startup 2.0, which is an issue for another day, is Senator Coons, my colleague from Delaware, and we're obviously interested in hearing from him about this issue as well. Thank you. And just to let the record reflect that I did not mean to offend hockey fans. On the contrary, we have two hockey teams.
Senator Rubio.
We, the Florida Panthers and the Lightning in the Tampa Bay area, who actually have won the Stanley Cup before, and in Florida, the Panthers in the playoffs last year. So we like hockey too, although you can't play it outdoors in Florida. But in any event, I think the point is well taken, that we do want the best and brightest. And the one point I want to make is it's the one thing I've picked up on in the immigration issue in general over the last 24 to 48 hours, is how important it is that accurate information reach the American people about what it is we're working on and what it is we're not working on. And immigration is a complicated thing. You know, I hear a lot of discussion about immigration. I'll have more to say about it later today, but immigration is a complicated process. The one we have now is complicated. It's important for people to understand what it is we're trying to do and what it is not. And I think that's true for the entire issue of immigration, but particularly important for this one. And to that end, I guess I want to issue a public challenge to the companies who in the past have gotten engaged in the public discourse and in the public debate on issues that involve the issues of technology. Just a few months ago, and it's a sore spot in some places, I imagine, but we had this issue we call SOPA and PIPA and all these other things that were going to impact the freedom of the internet and the freedom of communicating online. And a lot of groups got involved to speak about that and to try to clear the record about what they were for and what they were against. And I hope they'll do the same thing on this. I hope that they'll use the platforms on this to openly discuss what this is about. So I guess this is a challenge to the Facebooks and the Googles and the Twitters of the world. Get engaged in letting people know what's at stake here. That if you like these innovations, which have radically changed the way we live in this country. I mean, just think about this for a moment. If a decade ago you would tell someone that you were going to Google them, they would be offended because they didn't know what that didn't mean anything a decade ago. Now it means something. You know, if you were to say a decade ago that you were going to tweet something, people would look at you funny. Now it actually means something. These are innovations that happened in America that have not only changed the way we live and made our lives more interesting and in some ways more productive, but are really transforming the world. You think about the political movements here and around the world. There was a time when you couldn't even engage in public discourse in America if you didn't have an organization to back you. Now any single individual can become the leader of a movement fairly quickly by using the platform that have been created by innovators. The disproportionate number of the people that develop this stuff are immigrants, or the children of immigrants, or children or people that we've trained in this country that thank God we didn't send back home. We have a chance to do that, and I hope that those that have a vested interest in this issue passing will use the platforms that they own and operate to clearly inform the American people about what's at stake here on the issue of immigration as a whole, but in particular on this issue of high-skilled immigration. And I guess for some additional thoughts, I want to turn it over to Senator Coons, who has a unique insight into innovation. And we worked on the Startup 2.0. I'm going to plug it again because it's an important piece of legislation that we'd like to get done fairly soon. A lot of it based on investor visas and things of that nature. And I think Senator Coons has more to add about our efforts here today.